Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 24th SF Doc Fest. My name is Sarah Marie Flores. I curate the shorts programs here. The festival will be running May 29th through June 8th, digitally on your computer screen through the virtual festival or in person at the Roxy and Vogue theaters in San Francisco. A huge welcome to our Political is Personal shorts block filmmakers. Welcome, everybody. I would love to kick things off by just having you tell us your name, the film that you're here with, what your role was, and what the genesis of the story was for you. And I'm going to start off with Raymond. Hi, Raymond. Welcome.
Thanks. Really happy to be here. Um, so my short is titled A Mile and a Half. And so, honestly, A Mile and a Half was the genesis of A Mile and a Half. It's that it's only one film that was made from a nationwide collective of filmmakers called the Abortion Clinic Film Collective. And that collective was pulled together by Christy Guevara Flanagan um, in response to the Dobbs decision. And so each filmmaker in the collective looked at a abortion clinic nationwide that was forced to close post Dobbs because there was a trigger ban in that state. So, um, so yeah, so that was a large reason for the film. And I happened to be on the border of Minnesota and North Dakota at the time. So, and there was the only abortion clinic in the state of North Dakota was forced to close. So, and it, moved across the river. So it ended up being a success story where many of the other clinics in the abortion film collective just remained closed and services were completely cut short. So,
Such an important story to highlight. Want to move over to Jeff. Welcome. Please introduce yourself and tell us all the things.
Thank you for having us. My name is Jeff Schmidt. I'm the co-director and editor of Dukakis, Recipe for Democracy. Um, this project sort of started, I guess the seeds for it started close to 20 years ago. I met the governor when I was filming a project about bioenergy, and for some reason, he was one of the people that we were talking to, and he was already teaching at Northeastern at that time. And what had really struck me from that encounter was just that, he was in this very unassuming office. It was kind of tucked away, and he was very down to earth and just, intellectually curious. He was talking about his own biofuel experiments in the backyard. And, it just really struck me of, kind of, wow, this guy, he ran for president, and here he is kind of, tucked away in this, academia, but, that he was still engaged with trying to, have a hand in shaping the, public service,
Mhm.
future politicians, that kind of thing. And Aaron and I, uh, in 2016 or 2017, uh, started, kind of brainstorming, wanting to work on a project together. And given kind of the political, I guess, uh, how things were after the 2016 election, Aaron and I, kind of felt compelled to examine, what are we looking for in our leaders, in our public service, for president, and even in other areas. And Aaron, why don't
Mhm.
you kind of tell a little bit about your perspective?
Thank you so much, Jeff. Hi, Erin. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here and to share this film outside of Massachusetts and New England. I think in some ways the roots of the project, which Jeff captured so well, for me, go back to being a ninth grader in Michigan who thought Dukakis was phenomenal because he took public transit to work to his job at the state house. And so I remember him from that. And then living in Boston as an adult, I had the chance to get to know all these other interesting facts about him, how he maintained his role as an advocate for public transit, stayed in the public eye for just things that he cared about his entire life, and was known as someone who was kind, authentic, and walking the talk of what he believed in politically. And after the 2016 election, that felt just vitally important to lift up. And to share with people outside of Massachusetts who don't maybe know his legacy, that it exceeds far beyond that election that most people know him for in 1988.
Thank you so much, Erin. Hi, Eden. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Eden Wormfeld, and I'm the director and one of the producers on Classroom 4. And thank you so much for watching our films. And we're so excited to be part of this festival. I had the good fortune of being able to document the class that you just witnessed. Because I grew up with Dr. Hillier, and I've been hearing about this class for over a decade, and stars aligned and we were able to go in, and we didn't know if it would become a film. We couldn't ask permission of the participants in advance. So it was a process, and we decided that it was worth documenting, even if it was for archival purposes. And then a combination of all the participants wanting it to be made into a film and feeling that there was a magic happening in the room that maybe we could translate and amplify beyond that Classroom 4 was really a gift. And that's the project that you just watched. And I'm here also with Nick Five Oaks, whom you met in the movie, and he can introduce himself now too.
Thank you, Eden. Hi, Nick. Welcome. Oh, you can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. There we go. Hi, thank you for having me. As I all seen in the video, that I was incarcerated for almost 16 years, and when the opportunity came up to do this project, first I didn't know it was going to be a documentary, but the idea of somebody who's been incarcerated for such a long time working with students from a college, and typically somebody who you would probably never have contact with in your life other than walking by, was a great opportunity for me, because I was getting close to getting out, and trying to, reacclimate to outside versus inside was a huge step for me. And it was something that was an amazing experience, and learning and knowing some of these students who were there, just it hit all the right buttons for me. And I think it made life a lot easier to transition for me. And it's just something that I can carry with the rest of my life.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Nick. We're so glad to have you with us. And now to jump over to Audie, welcome. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your film.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as part of this festival. My name is Audie, and I'm from a very rural part of Northern California. I was born and raised in Mount Shasta. And I had come back from living in San Francisco and New York for about 15 years. And I wanted to start telling the stories of the locals in Siskiyou County. We're just under the Oregon border. And I felt that was important because a lot of the stories that were being told from this area were all about the ancient aliens that lived in the mountains and everything like that. And I had found that there's actually a lot of diversity, and there's a lot of pockets of stories that are very important and need to be told. So I started a documentary series called Shasta Stories, and I play all the hats. You know, I film, I produce, I edit, and basically everything except color and sound. And so this film, We Exist, is one of many episodes, and they all stand alone. And you know, the idea that we have this community of hobos that are very proud to be in Dunsmuir and Weed and these small towns that have a history of railroad culture, I felt was important. There's a lot of really amazing hobo documentaries that have been made over the years, but usually they're made by men and they all travel the rails with whoever they're filming, and usually they're filming men in their 40s. And although those are amazing, I wanted to focus this film on place. And so it's centered around this town of Dunsmuir that is struggling, right? Like it had the boom of the railroad industry, and now it's very different. And so the main star, as you know, is Sweet Bean Celine, this incredible 30-year-old musician hobo. And then also this local man named Buck Groeschel, who was a train engineer. And they both talk about their interaction with hobos, right? And how it's changed from, you know, after the war, it was mostly men, they were mostly individual, to now it's a lot of queer, gay, and trans individuals who actually have a very strong community, and they're incredible artists and musicians. And yet a lot of them don't live past the age of 35. And so I was really honored to just show not only the community that exists in my backyard to other neighbors of mine who had no idea, but also to be able to share such a sweet, meaningful, heartfelt story, especially from Sweet Bean Celine, while weaving in a little bit of that history. So that's just part of a larger project, and I am so glad to be sharing it with you. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us.
Mhm.
Raymond, to jump back over to you, I mean, if anyone's been watching the news, we live in a very interesting, let's say interesting, not catastrophic and fascist time. But obviously, for those of us who were following the bombing that happened yesterday in Palm Springs, and while this feels unrelated to the larger narrative of pro-life, anti-choice folks, I think it does just illustrate kind of the trauma that we feel around the erasure of reproductive rights spaces and facilities. Raymond, can you just talk a little bit more? I mean, the world has changed even so much just since this film has been completed. Like how the mission of amplifying these stories has been for you and your team, and kind of how you're feeling about the current state of affairs.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, the bombing yesterday was just, you know, even though the news will say that it was unrelated to abortion services, it was not unrelated. I mean, to bomb a clinic that people come to for reproductive rights of any kind is absolutely intended to strike fear in people, especially women, from seeking that type of medical help. And it, you know, unfortunately, it will be effective. Like that type of violence will on some level be effective. But having said that, you know, this collective, the Abortion Clinic Film Collective is, you know, frankly stronger than ever. I mean, it started in, we started in what year? Like I want to say 2020. Well, no, it was like pretty much immediately post-opposition. So, and we just came together basically out of rage, you know, out of like rage and not knowing what else to do aside from being filmmakers. And so wanting to like do something, wanting to take part and do something. So, um, but you know, the process and the actual collective process has been so strong, and you know, we were all over the country. I mean, and the clinics that we followed have been all over the country. So our main collective meetings have been on Zoom, but we regularly check in. We now have a text thread. You know, we all have screened. Individual members of us have coordinated and led screening, some at micro cinemas and then some at more professional, I don't know, not professional, but larger spaces across the country. So, you know, we screened at the whole series at Artist Television Access and then at AGX Film, so in San Francisco, AGX Film Collective in Boston, um, Shapeshifters in Oakland. We just recently screened in Seattle and in Washington. We screened in Arizona, which is close to one of the other clinics that was covered. Um, and that's going on. So I think, you know, for me, the sense of like working in real, like collective community to resist that type of inaction and fear and paralysis that comes just with rage, you know, about what's going on and the attempts to control women's bodies. So, and we now have like more members. I mean, we've connected to more members who have come forward, either found us or we found them, who are making short films about the assault on reproductive rights. So, um, and lastly, I think it's probably important to say that, you know, we are connecting the assault on reproductive rights to the assault on transgender rights and like the assault altogether on any form of bodily autonomy in this country right now. So yeah, I mean, overall, hard to say, like the news is awful. But just being in this type of community and really feeling the sense of coming together nationwide. And, you know, a lot of us, not all of us, a lot of us are experimental filmmakers on some level. So, you know, the films are not traditional, although some of us are traditional documentarians. So it's a real sense of collectivity and community. And that's powerful. I think that's been really powerful for a lot of us.
I agree. Thank you so much, and for your community's organization, because everything is terrible. But having folks come together and highlight that and continue to work together and forge community is the only way that we can make it through. So thank you so much. Now to move over to Jeff and Aaron. I mean, just thinking about the legacy of Governor Dukakis, you know, I was only 4 when he ran for president, but I have this clear memory of watching Donnie Darko as a teenager. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but for me, it was like the first time I was like, who is this person? And why does Maggie Gyllenhaal's character want him to be elected so badly? And what does that really mean for us? And when you look back at this legacy, right? Like, had Governor Dukakis become our president instead of President Bush, how different would things have been set up for today? It's hard. I like to work in the futurism space and to kind of look back and say like these moments that we could have done differently. But like, what can you expand upon your experience working with the governor, and kind of the lessons to take away in terms of like community organizing and continuing to fight for the need to have green energy and fight for the rights of people? And Jeff and Aaron, I'll leave it up to you to who wants to jump in first.
Sure, I can jump in. I think one of the things that just, just really struck both of us when we first, reached out to the governor, he actually reached, he followed back up with us. I mean, you would think that, you might really have to, and it's not to say that, we reached out and then we started filming like, the next week, but he interacted with us in a way that I think a lot of people experienced, through the years that, really kind of spoke to his ability to engage people and to, really kind of try to make a difference in communities. And, the fact that at the time that we reached out to him, he was 85 years old and he was still doing it. He was still, he was teaching, he was trying to, really kind of, set young people in, to kind of keep up the battle, keep up the war. And, it was kind of fun for us to actually, as we're filming in classrooms and we're, feeling like, okay, so who can we kind of, pick out or who can step up to kind of show us the continuation of the governor's legacy. And lucky for us, Juan Gallego really kind of, stood out. And, as time went on with our, the filming of the project, which was in some ways, interrupted by COVID, the silver lining in that was that we actually got to see the evolution of Juan as a public service and, actually now actually having a position at the governor's office, and when he started, he was an undergraduate teaching assistant. So, I mean, Erin, I know that was, every time we go out and do a screening with Juan, we're just kind of like, the hope for the future.
Thank you, Jeff. Aaron, how is that for you and like looking forward to this community?
Yeah, Juan totally lives up to the like you're feeling really low and then you sit with him and you're like, he's not just our future, he's our present. He's like working on our behalf. He's so great. I love the Donnie Darko reference, by the way. That's fantastic. I mean, I'll just quickly say with the governor, and this is with all respect, it's like no fight is too small. And so, and he, if he believes in it, it's like he's going to do what it takes to get what he thinks the world needs to be a better place. And I think that goes for no person that he interacts with is too small either. There's so many parts of his story that don't come into our short. But in meeting many, many, many of his students over his 30, almost 40 years of teaching, they were amazed one after the next for the way that he would go to bat for them and with them and get on the phone and make a phone call so that they could get their project done or make a connection for their future. Just like, I don't know, it just really a remarkable person in that way to actually stand behind what he says over and over again.
And step in to shape that next generation. Thank you so much. Eden and Nick, I'm going to give you separate questions because I think they kind of speak to this. But I mean, obviously, the prison pipeline has been a very large issue. If you look at kind of the history of incarceration within this country and the violence that it does have against underserved communities, and the way that industrialized prison complexes kind of halts this like need for education. And we're definitely seeing this right now in this assault on the education department here within this country, how it stands as a roadblock for empowering those to kind of take their lives back into their own hands, especially from the anti-recidivistic context. Eden, what was it like for you to kind of step in and get to see how powerful this classroom setting was? And what was your approach to kind of capturing that? And obviously a lot of this kind of happened in the edit room. So like, how did you bring that together in its film form?
It was really, I felt like it was just an immense honor to bear witness to this class. And I hope that it translates. You all have just watched it. I hope you feel some of the magic that went on in that room. I always thought of this as a celebration of great teachers and great teaching, and the way that teachers can change lives. And I really feel like Dr. Hilliard does that. And as she says in the film, she kind of sets it up and then she just needs to get out of the way, because it's happened. This kind of chemistry is happening, and the act of these two groups of people coming together, meeting each other, learning with and from one another is just extraordinary. And it's our hope for the film that it'll, as many eyeballs as possible will get on it. We're really trying to get it out into the world, and both as an impact and outreach tool, but that extends to just general audience, because I think that people don't really know what it's. I know that I had never been inside a prison. I didn't know what it would be like, and I think that hearing particularly from the inside students is quite extraordinary. And it's something I've seen a lot of films that are tread in this world, but I think that the voices of the men in this are voices that we don't hear a lot. And I was very grateful to be able to capture those voices and help amplify them. I don't know if I'm answering the question. I forgot what it was.
Beautiful. You did great. You did great.
I'll pass it to Nick. And
yeah. So Nick, I would love to just chat with you about how this experience informed your transition from incarceration, in terms of like a pursuit of education, and how it's shaped your life since then. And you want to unmute.
I'm
I keep
sorry.
muting you just because it's a little loud where you are.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
The experience for me was, I don't think Eden could have put it any better. I went in there with very guarded feelings, and when you got to learn and experience these outside students' lives, and you got to know them on a more personal level, it became more of a friendship with people, like I had said earlier, people that you would never probably see in your life, and becoming vulnerable in there to outside students, and Miss Hillier and Eden was kind of eye-opening for me, because you're in there, you're very shielded, and you don't express emotion in ways that people can look at as a weakness. And once that that wall kind of fell down, it was like it doesn't matter anymore. And I could see myself kind of relaxing a little bit, to the point where it's like, I'm gonna be okay. Going from four walls for such a long time, out to what I have before me now and behind me, has been a major transition, and it took a little while to get used to. But I wanted to take that class because I needed it for stability in my life, and it helped out with me being able to transition by communicating, and rather than just somebody who wears the same color t-shirt, the same color pants day in and day out. You're learning different life experiences, and you're actually being able to talk to people in a normal fashion, or what would be considered a normal fashion on the outside. And I've said it multiple times, and I can't express it enough, that this was very life-changing for me. It made it a lot easier, and it's something that I don't think it's something I could ever repay. Back to Eden and Miss Hillier, and
pay it forward within your community.
Oh, absolutely, I do all the time.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Nick. We're so glad to have you here. And last but not least, I will say, I grew up in Sacramento, which does have a very vibrant train culture. I spent the end of my teen years in a house called Off the Grid, which was filled with women and queer folks and BIPOC folks that you often don't see affiliated with kind of train culture in general. So I think that, telling this story in particular really highlights how diverse that community is. Can you just kind of talk us through a little bit more about how you decided to tell this specific story and why it was important for you to highlight these folks?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of nostalgia in these small towns, There's a lot of um there's less young people because there's less jobs, and there's a lot of people who are kind of gazing back at the past and saying, "Oh, that 20 years was really good. We got to get back there." And you're like, that was a, usually resource-based industry, and that's not where our future is probably going in this town. So I felt like it's really important to give voice to what's happening now. It's okay to look back and look at the history and see where we come from, but I think that was a big requisite of what I was looking for. So Celine, I actually did a music video for her, which I don't usually do, but a friend of mine from Dunsmuir has a non-binary magazine for artists and females. And she said, "Oh, can you do a music video about Sweet Bean Celine?" And then that just started to build my trust. I had been out to this place called Black Butte Center for Railroad Culture, which is along the tracks, and it's a spot where some hobos can live or stop by, as well as play music and have different safe related events. And I just thought, this is amazing, and this is encouraging to see. It's encouraging to see how you can take care of each other even if you don't have many possessions or if you don't have a lot of money. And I just shared basically one person, Sweet Bean Celine, and then Absent, who was also in the film, a little bit of their lives, but obviously that was just one version. So yeah, who doesn't want to know about that community, right?
It's the tip of the iceberg. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to join us. It's all the time we have today. But it's so vital to share stories like these. And we're so honored to get to highlight them with our festival. So thank you so much. And have a great rest of your day.
Thanks